Are you ripped?
Yep.
Ready to rip?
Ready to go.
All right, welcome to episode 45 of the Zone's All Access hosted by the Sports Center. Before we get started, I need to thank all my marketing partners. Without them, we couldn't do what we do. I've got some premier partners I need to mention. Stay and Play Doggy Daycare, Value RX Pharmacy Tazewell, Whitaker Insurance Agency, Hearthside Bank, Pizza Inn of Tazewell, Walker & Walker Construction, Clayton Homes of Middlesboro, Claiborne Health and Wellness, Roland Vet Services, Danny England Motors, and of course First Century Bank for supplying our communications. Today I have Coach Dalton Lee from the Bulldogs as my guest once again. We're going to talk about the season. Thank you for coming once again.
Thanks, man.
All right. Looking at it now, let's talk about your season and give me your overall thoughts.
Yeah, it was a tough one. We had some high expectations going in. Didn't really, capitalize on what we wanted to or what we could have. But a tough schedule. But there's some other things that we're going to fix. So year one, the whole new staff, whole new system, everything. Kids, a lot of the stuff was new to the kids. I think they battled through, very well. There's some areas we're going to have to fix, but I'm proud of the way they fought. I mean, they didn't really ever give up in any games. The Dobbins Bennett was Dobbins Bennett. I mean, that's frustrating as it is, but we could have had more fight in that ball game. No, Dobbins Bennett was a really good football team, but they also, like, our kids did not play the way they could have. We've seen some glimpses, but defensively, that was just we were upset. But other than that, they played hard. There was a lot of fight in those kids. I was pleased. We really should have made the playoffs this year. A couple things knocked us out of it, but great group of kids. Senior group will miss them dearly. But man, they fought.
Yeah. Okay, what goals did you have for the team that were accomplished?
Towards the end of the season, we never really put in a number on the win column like what we expected. We just wanted to go play hard, and they did. Mentally, it took them a while to get where they needed to be. Executing plays the way they were properly, doing their job, being very disciplined in what they do. I think towards the end of the year, it started, things started clicking a little bit more, and just not making mistakes. I think that's something that we get towards the end of the year. I think we started off after week 3 had 12, 13 turnovers. So it was, we were a little careless with the ball. Didn't really have many takeaways to offset that. But they did. They admit, like, they got the playbook down. Probably, I'd say really, really good about week 5, and then execution followed that. And you wished you could come into the season, knowing the playbook like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
That way you ain't got to think, because you ask a football player to think, and you're in trouble.
I've heard that.
Yeah, but they did a good job. I was really proud with the way they played.
What goals did you not accomplish?
I think one of the big things was we wanted to make the playoffs. We felt like we were a playoff football team. At times played like a playoff football team, but we tell them you've got to do it week in, week out, every single play. You're guaranteed so many plays in a football game. I think you walk away with 65, 70 plays. You better make the most of them. At least on one side of the ball. We ask our kids just to do your job, focus on your job. Don't be an expert in what the other guy does. Be an expert in what you do, but know what they're supposed to do, and hold each other accountable without being like rude to your brother. But we had to go through some phases of stuff like that. Other people telling each other how to do their jobs when it wasn't their place. But they come together, and we definitely missed the playoffs like we should have thought we should have. We were a playoff football team. Region, was probably not as high as it's been in years past. We had a good opportunity to take advantage of it, but we didn't execute.
Being a first-year coach, what did you learn over the course of the year?
There's a lot that goes into it. A lot more than you think. Which I know going into it, you're not just going to show up and coach football and go home, and that'd be the end of it. There was a time I don't think I was thinking about anything else but the kids and the program, and just making sure I wanted it to be as good. because kids get so many high school football games, you want to make the most of it. Like I want them to have the best experience possible and also learn as many valuable lessons they can take away with them in life. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm gonna start leaning into more of my guys. The coaching staff we have. We have a great coaching staff. People always tell me you need to delegate, delegate, delegate. I'm like, Coach Jake Williams, he just takes it upon himself. He's like, I'm gonna go do it. Like I don't care if you say yes or no. I'm like, yep. Like, which a lot of the stuff needs to be done.
Yeah.
But him telling you, without him, a lot of the stuff would go. It did take a while to get done, but he does it like at the drop of a pen. I'm gonna start leaning into those guys, delegating more. From a football standpoint, X's and O's. I feel like we learned a lot that first season. Like we learned how to coach with each other, what our kids are good at, and we're gonna try and do the same thing, do a little bit sooner next year. Try to figure it out in the summer, and be really diligent on our fall scrimmages and make sure that we're looking for the right things. I think we know now.
Let's start out talking about the goals for next season for the coaching staff, and then switch it over to the goals for the team.
Coaching staff, I feel like every coach on staff has a good idea of the playbook, but I want them to kind of everybody to be an expert in their area. If that makes sense, because like from an offensive standpoint, you got offensive line, you got Coach Pete and Coach Payton, like they need to be an expert in and out. Like how we adjust to this is how we always adjust to it. There's no no variables to it. Like if we have a three front and two outside linebackers, Jake knows on trap, or Coach Jake knows on trap, we're going to base out the outside linebacker if he's there. If there's no one there, we're going to arc up. Those are the rules and the principles that we got to make sure that everybody knows across the board. I think that's one thing as a staff that we're going to sit down and try to iron out and really get hammer them down. But I think as a staff, I think that's really about probably our main shortfall.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about your staff for just a second. Mention names if you want to. Don't if you don't feel like it. But what did each of them bring to the table?
We'll start with Coach West. Coach West and Nance. He's a very good mentor to the kids. He's not much of a yeller. He really disciplines the kids, though. Like when he's upset, they listen. The kids respect him very well. From a defensive standpoint, he was in charge of the whole defensive game plan. He dissected their offense pretty much. I think he done a really, really good job each game this year. We weren't really caught off guard by anything. He's very diligent in his preparation. He does a really good job with the odd running backs on offense as well. He teaches them exactly what they're supposed to know. There's going to be a lot more stuff leading up into like in the off season that we're going to work on that he's excited about. But we're going to have to try to make some running backs. We've got a couple we think are going to roll for us. You got Coach Jake Williams, phenomenal guy. Works at the sheriff's department. It's good having a cop on staff for one. Kids are kind of a little bit afraid of him, in that aspect. But he's one of the nicest guys you'll know. Great mentor as well.
Good guy. Yeah.
He's a very good guy. He coaches the H-backs, does a really good job. Coaches linebackers. I thought he'd done a phenomenal job this year. He got Braxton Stubblefield was playing really, really good linebacker at the end of the year.
He was.
It took him a while, but he figured it out, and it was just it clicked. But he's got a tall task for him next year. But he does just about everything. Like helping make sure things are clean, make sure the stuff's put away. Laundry's always done. Me and him kind of bounce back and forth between laundry. If we hear the washer or dryer going, we always go up there and check it, and we'll swap it over. He does just about everything, like behind the scenes that you don't see. Very OCD, which is good because it's very organized up there. Everything's in totes. It's labeled. Thankful for that. You got Coach Pete Brewer, does offensive line. He does a really, really good job with those guys. Excited to see how much they can grow next year. He likes to fine tune a lot of things. We're going to try and back up a little bit, coach from a broader standpoint. But being an offensive lineman is a bit of a you wear it with honor. Like that's a good badge to have. We take pride, being physical and big, and being technically sound.
Yeah.
He does a good job of that. You got Coach Pritchard. He's the defensive line. Plays like he had those kids playing good too. Corbin Whitaker was coming on really well, really good at the end of the year. But like Coach Pritchard always says, you've got to coach it down to like the finer like football 101. Like why are we trying to stop them? Why are we trying to keep them inside? Kids don't really understand that as much, so we're going to try to do a better job of explaining those things. my brother kind of bounced back here and there. He lives in Oak Ridge, works in Kingsport, tries to show up when he can. He's like a Tasmanian devil running in every time he gets there. Just screams a lot. I'm glad he does it for me because I don't like losing my voice. But he motivates the kids. Wish we had him a little bit more, there. Coach Payton, he come in, kind of in towards the beginning of the year, like about right before the first game, he showed up and he was phenomenal. Like he played tackle at Morristown East. Really had Stan McDaniel and Elijah Poor, like those started clicking, and like the stuff he was teaching them, the stuff that I don't know necessarily know because I didn't play offensive line that much. I know the basics of it, but he was teaching them the fundamentals and like ways to get around things and like counteract these things. Super thankful for that. But like really, really good staff. I feel very confident with our coaches. I think we're going to pick up a couple more guys, but it's still in the works. But we're excited.
All right, I'm going to give you a little heater this time.
Yeah.
What if you give us a performance assessment of your coaching staff in year one? Would it be an A, B, or what letter grade?
I'd say they like me included, or like all of us together, we'd probably give you about a D, D minus. Like there was a lot of things that we, looking back, like the first couple weeks of the season, I can't even watch the film. It makes me sick because like we didn't do a good job preparing at a high level, and that's my fault. It starts with me and trickles down. We got to do a better job in our preparation, and it started now. Like our off-season workouts, we've dialed the notch up a little bit. We expect more out of the kids. Like we had a tough schedule, sure, but like that doesn't take away from the fact that we had good athletes on our team. And look, I'm confident in our kids, but we've got to make sure that they're ready to play.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite moments this year?
I liked the bye week just because the kids didn't like it as much, but we kind of got to go a little bit more towards old school football.
Yeah.
And a lot of running, a lot of hitting, a lot of puking. It's something we should have done a long time ago. That was my fault. I was a little soft on them. That was a good week, but seeing them get through that week and just seeing like it's not so bad. Like and then still wanting to show up and do it again the next day and like not knowing what the plan is. Coach Jake wrote on the board. He's like, "Are you willing to run, not knowing the distance? Like when the end, like where the end mark is? Like, are you going to wake up and do it again?" And they just kept showing up. But then seeing them, like finally achieve victory, that was another good one. That was a good moment. Those kids fought hard for that, and I'm glad they finally got one.
Okay, what was your unfavorable moments, and what was the worst you felt after a loss?
Unfavorable, I would probably tie it in with two games: the Johnson County game and the Chucky Doak game. We let those get away. We look like a completely different.
Man, that was rough.
It was rough. We looked like a completely different team in the second half against Johnson County. Chucky Doak, Elijah Poor went down. He was trying to battle through it. There wasn't necessarily a fall off. There just wasn't good communication because when our core offensive line group was in, they could tell you what each other's favorite food was or whatever. It don't matter what they were doing after the game. They communicated very well. When one goes out and you have to plug somebody else in, it kind of miscommunication happens, and it happened a lot. But we really let those games get away from us, and that was very frustrating. But I'd say probably the worst I felt was after the Dobbins Bennett game because I know we're playing Dobbins Bennett, but at the same time, like there was no fight in our kids. Like we had a couple good drives, but like defensively, like Coach West was ready to pull his hair out. There was times we had 9 on the field, and like knowing like we made the substitution to it, and kids just said they just didn't want to go in, and that runs all over me. Like because we play Greenville every year. I would have much rather suited up against Dobbins Bennett than I would have Greenville. 100%, like 10 times out of 10. But like you still fight, like we still want our kids to fight.
Okay, I got a couple of questions online here. Basically, they're saying, what do you think about the rising freshmen coming in?
Oh, I'm excited. It's a good group of kids, really good group of kids. They should have probably won the championship in middle school. Some things happen, here and there, some eligibility stuff. But other than that, they're a good group. I was excited. Like I work at SMS, so I'm around some of them. Great group of kids. Excited to see what they can do when we get in the weight room. I think just about all of them play basketball. I feel like, but we're excited to get them. There's a lot of you talk about some of the kids like Trevor Taylor, Drake Houston. They just got middle school. All East Tennessee. Phenomenal kids. There's a lot more good kids in that group. Like they're going to grow a lot, and we're trying to maximize their potential. Try to get them in the weight room as soon as we can. But we're excited about them.
Okay, what was the most challenging part to this year?
The challenging part, I'd say, probably was navigating a first year. Trying to shift. We say how do we want our team to be? What do we want? What do we want our kids to think of ourselves? How does it look on the outside in? Trying to really, change that image of what kind of football team we want to be. It's a gradual change. It's not something that happens overnight. But I was pleased with how we've adjusted. But seeing our seniors, our kids that are going to be seniors this year, already in the weight room, we expect a lot out of them. And we rely heavily, like just about every high school football team relies heavily on their seniors and their upperclassmen. And they really they're our recruiters, they're our driving force of our program. So we're feeding a lot into them. But navigating, year one, it was all new to me. Well, I say new, but I was lucky to be under Coach Nash. Be around guys like Coach Jake Walker that coached here for a while. Very insightful guys. I got buddies, around the area that are head coaches. We bounce stuff off each other. And what do you do when this happens? How would you handle this? So definitely leaning on those guys and learning more. And I've not seen everything yet. But I'm gonna at some point. I hope I see enough to blanket it all. But we'll see.
Another question online here. What do you think about the upcoming sophomores?
I'm excited about them too. When kids join a high school football program, they don't think that I'm a freshman, I'm not going to play much. Well, we had kids like Brayton Ford showed up every day, which I don't think it was by choice because I picked him up every day. Picked him up, dropped him off, but I did feed him, so we're good there. Kid eats like a horse, but we're really gonna they're gonna have to step up. We're expecting those kids Colton Brewer to step up. He's going to have to play a lot of running back, which he started almost I think every game this year on defense. He never said no to anything. You think he's 180 pounds, but he's like 145, 150. But he's going to get in the weight room. They see, I think that whole sophomore or that freshman group that's going to be sophomores next year, they see what kind of work they need to put in and how you need to enjoy Friday nights, but you also need to love the process and really buy into that. Want to get better. We're expecting those kids to really grow, so we're excited.
Good. As most coaches try to do, they try to make players better and make good kids off the floors and in the fields. Do you feel like you've done that any?
Yeah, I feel like we've got really good kids. That senior group, they were a good one to start with. I can tell you, some stand-up kids. Great men. They're going to be great fathers one day. Good hard workers. I look to them in a lot of scenarios. Elijah Poor, he's a phenomenal kid. Probably pretty much man now. His high school football days are over, but I get track season with him, so I'm excited about that. But him and Eli Keck both. They're good leaders. Spencer Brewer, they took a lot of those younger kids under their wing. Chris Ford, same way for him. Aiden Roark, they were all a really, really good group of kids. So I think not only did the coaching staff help make it, them promote the kids better, better attitudes. The players did too.
That's awesome. What steps are you going to take to improve the team for next year?
Well, we're going to start with preparation. We're starting the weight room quick. The workouts they're a little bit different. We did some things last year. We're going for 2 hours this year. Last year we went for an hour, about an hour and a half. A lot more running. We're trying to make a faster program or faster kids, more explosive kids. It should be a direct translation from the weight room to how we play on the field. We're still pretty big in size, but we're really needing our skill kids to step up. There's a lot of kids that could really, in the offense we run, we could have, Aiden Rock, which is, 3 yards and pound for pound. He's going to get you what you need. But if we had any other kind of speed, I always mess with Aiden, he wasn't the fastest kid. But if he had any kind of speed, he probably had every bit of 1,500 yards, 2,000 yards rushing this year with the lanes he had. So that's where we're on. Preparation is probably our number one thing.
Okay, we talked about losing all them seniors. What holes are you going to have to fill? And do you have the players to step in?
Yeah. I guess we'll start with the offensive line. We had some kids, really good group, really solid group. Those kids really came along. Aiden Roark, I would have loved to have been a running back in this offense because behind those guys, they were opening lanes left and right. really good lanes. Like they finished their blocks. It wasn't like just they really finished their blocks. Stan McDaniel come on really good there. Playing left tackle. Um, but yeah, I think we've got some kids in that like that category. Like where we're still gonna have 4 seniors on offensive line, so that's a good plus. Pierce Tong got some good reps towards the end of last year. Had to start against Gallenberg Pittman. We're really gonna push him to be better, and I think he's willing to do it. He's ready to do it. And we see him being able to do it. So he'll probably end up. He may roll in there at center. May play a guard spot. We still got Noah Ott coming back. He's a phenomenal. He started every game for us. Stan McDaniel at left tackle, and I'm a little partial, but I think Trey Davis is probably one of the best linemen we have, just based off of physicality, and we got to get him to run the plays right. But he's a brute in the weight room. Excited to get him. He'll be starting for us. We'll just have to find one more tackle. Skill kids. It's going to be hard to replace a kid like Chris Ford.
Yes.
Phenomenal athlete. He's a good basketball player. He's a great football player. Look forward to seeing him, play on the court. But he's going to be hard to replace. I told Brayton, I said, you're going to have to be a Chris Ford. We're expecting a lot out of you. Because, I'd say probably 9 times out of 10, teams knew where we were going with the ball whenever, it was like any kind of passing situation or we were down, find Chris and give him the ball, give him a chance. Caden Williams, another hard one to replace. We kind of don't go up in size any with him leaving because we still got Riley Carmack. We breed him small in the slot apparently. Still Riley's explosive. He's shifty. He pretty much he got to learn a lot in the offseason because we expected him. Cade Williams was hurt for a while, so we were like, we're going to throw Riley in there and just throw him trial by fire. He messed up a lot, but we knew he would. So we're going to let him. We're going to still support him no matter what. Roll with him. We're going to have to find another outside receiver. Whether that be Owen Stone or whoever. Somebody steps up. Need some kids to really commit themselves. But then Aiden Rourke at running back, that's a tough one to replace. He's a power back by heart. He's going to be a tough one offensively and defensively to replace. Corbin Whitaker at the H back, he's got great hands. He was a good blocker, big body. On defense, you got Braxton Stubblefield playing middle linebacker. I don't think we have a linebacker on the team right now, so Coach Jake's going to have a tall task for him again, which we knew going into last year we didn't really have anybody. But Braxton really took pride in it and really worked at it, worked hard. We asked him to play a JV game, and most seniors would be like upset about it. Well, he said it's a good opportunity for me to get better, and he did. From that point on, he skyrocketed. Just kept going up. He's going to be another tough one to replace. But I feel like we've got the kids to do that. I think we have some kids that don't need to step up, like the Vlad twins. They're both going to have to step up. There's nobody else in front of those kids, and I think they realize that, and they're going to work. They're going to push themselves. And Jason Dyer, JD, he had to play center at Gallenberg Pittman. Didn't complain. Played running back, defensive tackle. He's going to have to step up as well, but I think he realizes that too. So we've got a good group coming back.
Okay, overall, give your team a grade.
Overall, well, obviously 1-9 is not the best, record to end the year with. 2 or 3 one-score losses. We were in a ball game with a couple teams. It was halftime 13-0 against Volunteer, but you don't get a trophy for being in a close game. I would give them probably the way we started. It's a hard F, but I'd say the way we finished, it was about a B plus. So I'd probably give them in the middle about a C minus. I'd give them C minus.
Okay, you got at least one more season with the toughest season in East Tennessee, or toughest schedule in East Tennessee. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we knew, it's a 2-year cycle. So, we're 2-year contracts. The kids, some teams are going to lose kids. Some teams are going to gain kids. Some teams recruit as part of it. It's just you pull one of those strings every now and then. I think it's like Claiborne history. Every time you schedule somebody, the first time you ever played them, they have the best seasons they've ever had. So, Volunteer Coach Jeremy Wagner done a really good job out there. They went from 0-10 to almost beat Anderson County in the playoffs. So they really made a quick turnaround. But we're changing the way we do things, changing the way we prepare. We got to make sure that our kids are ready to perform at a high level. So it starts with the weight room first and foremost. we're starting 4 days a week. So we're going to go 4 days a week till spring ball, doing modified spring ball, and then go back at it 4 days a week. So and the kids are ready. I mean they're buying into it right now. So we need a little bit more participation because I mean you play football you've got 11 kids on the field at one point, but I like us to be able to go out there with 20, 25, kids able to compete on varsity and support each other. Even some of those younger, kids coming up, the kids that are going to be freshmen, they're going to have to help us in some way. We'll play anybody just as long as you give us 100%.
Okay, talk about internet question. Talk about who's going to be looked at for the quarterback position.
We've looked at obviously Noah Burke started the first couple games for us. Him moving over to receiver, we kind of approached him. We're going to need you to play some defense. When Caden Lovin came back, he's another hard one to replace.
He showed off in defense.
He did. He showed off
teams.
He did. I mean, Noah Burke done everything you could ask of him, and he's only going to continue to get better. Him moving to receiver, he understands the offense so much better now, and he's going to be able to help. Run that through him. We'll be able to run everything through him. It's not going to be any hiccups. Probably a little bit more downfield concepts, more quick game stuff, RPO, because he can read it well. Look forward to seeing how he grows. Cole Brewer will be right behind him. He's another running threat. He's got a decent arm. But when anybody else wants to step up, we've told some of the kids like Danny Ball, we're like, hey, if you want to play defense, come here, play quarterback. You're more welcome to try it. So being a quarterback is more than just wearing a full jacket, walk around the hallways with the girls chasing you. You got to know your job, but I always the quarterback has to know everybody's job. We've got to be able to hit. He needs to be able to read a defense and adjust. I think they asked the right questions, so I think we're excited about our quarterback room moving forward.
I'm sure this is bittersweet, but how did the win over Cumberland Gap feel to you?
It was good. I was real happy for the kids. They fought hard for it.
Yeah.
It felt like every time we made strides.
And again, last year you were at the other place.
True, exactly.
That's why it's bittersweet.
Yeah, because you feel like we went 10 steps forward, and then as soon as we'd make so many strides, we'd shoot ourselves in the foot, and then it'd just be back to we suck again, or we can't beat Johnson County. But when we look in the mirror, it's our fault. It was 100% our fault why we didn't win those games. Should have beat Chucky Doak, but they were a very improved program from last year. I think that if it just wasn't for us, we couldn't get out of our own way there for a little bit. So, but it was for them to finally get that and taste victory and the way we did. I think it was a long time coming for them.
Okay, who were the athletes that surprised you? We talked about some of them, but who were the athletes that surprised you on or off the field?
Well, I'll probably start with Elijah Poor. We already knew he was a good football player, but he's matured like that. I mean, he was a leader in the locker room that we needed.
So that's one I could see.
Yeah,
I mean, middle part of the season on.
Yeah, he turned it on. He did. He's some of the young kids look up to him. I was excited to have him not only as a player, as a person. Same with Eli Keck. Both those kids were up together. They're just phenomenal.
Kid, yeah.
Phenomenal kids, great players, great friends. And Cade Lovin doing everything he could. We knew he may not have been able to play. He wasn't 100% all year, but he still gave everything he got. He said, if I go down playing football, I love it. I'll do it all over again. And I was like, that really, warmed my heart up for him because being able to do something you love and play the sport you love. People think it's crazy. Why would you play football? Why would you put your life on the line? But your body on the line. But when kids experience football and not only winning, but going out there, I'd say playing with your friends, practicing, I always tell them, I say, I would hurt myself in some way to be able to go back and just practice again. I want to go to one practice. Give me one practice with Coach Lyles, Coach Shack yelling at me. I do it all over again. I don't even want to play a game. I just want to go practice. It means I want it to mean as much to them as it does me. And I love the game, but you learn so much more outside the game that comes direct relation from football.
Were there a few of your players that were struggling academically that you saw a difference in?
I didn't have any teachers message me, so that was good.
Well, that's good.
But I'm also not in the building, so apparently it's not a priority. But it is what it is. I can get on a whole soapbox for it, but I didn't have any academic issues out of them. There was a couple of times some kids had to go to some extra credit movies, but if you go to extra credit moving because you're failing, that's a different thing. You control your own situation. As long as you just go to school, give your teacher 100%, just like you give your coaches. Are you going to be a mathematician? You're not. Not everybody's going to be a mathematician. Not everybody's going to be a Scientologist. Just go give 100% in science and math, and just go on about your day.
One more question from the internet. How do you feel about the receiver corps?
I feel solid about it. I'd like to. We kind of talked about it the other day. We'd like to sprinkle in some more kids. Need a lot more athletes out on the perimeter because we're gonna probably run more pass concepts next year. We've got some younger kids like Zayden Michael come in towards the end of the year. We anticipate him, possibly coming in, stepping up, being a solid junior for us. You got Brayton Ford will be a sophomore. Hopefully, he makes a lot of growth in the weight room. And as an athlete, I don't know how much. He's probably going to get a little bit taller, so I don't know what size shoes he wears, but he is. Hey, we seen him outside working out yesterday, and you could tell, he's starting to mature a little bit. Testosterone, he's getting a little bit of puberty again. But no, I feel good about if we got Owen Stone out there as an athlete, as a corner, safety, receiver. He helps us like a fast kid, naturally fast.
He's a great athlete.
He is. Look forward to seeing, some other kids step up. Like we got Danny Ball, that's a sophomore, or he's going to be a sophomore next year. He showed up, literally catch everything. I don't know, it was like he'd jump out of the boat in the middle of the water, and he wouldn't miss nothing. He would jump out of a boat in the middle of the desert and hit water. That's how good he was. He can catch it all. But no, he can't stay healthy to save his life. He's always hurt. But no, we anticipate him being good. I think one of our unsung, hero, I say heroes, but kids that could be really good next year is Darian Roche. He's got a high motor. I don't think he's ever played football, but he literally he gives Coach Pritchard everything he can on the defensive line. Yeah. We ran 40s the other day, and he was the fastest kid we had, and we were okay, which we ain't got everybody right now, but he's still he's pushing himself in the weight room. So but the receiver group is the core. I feel good about it. We would like to pick up a couple more kids or some other kids step up. Yeah. But I feel confident in it.
Okay, what's the program's need going forward?
We're going to try to restructure some things up there. We'd love some more, we need more parental support. We're going to try to extend that hand a little bit. We're going to need some more people up here helping these kids. We need to be able to run concessions during JV games. Varsity parents, if we have a JV game, we'd love for you to come help, because that's money for the program. That's not money just for, concessions or whatever. That's our money.
Explain why the volunteering that the parents will do helps your program.
It does, because I think there was one JV game I was trying to run the ticket booth and the money and the tickets and I had to go give the refs their check, and it's just I was bouncing back and forth, but I want more people bought in, because you see when parents are in it just as much as the kids are, you see really good results. And I want that place to grow and flourish, just from an outside standpoint. I want people to see, Claiborne Bulldogs plastered everywhere. Things take money and time. We're going to try and redo some stuff for the weight room, get some nice stuff for the kids, give them a little lounge area. And we're talking about uniforms that'll probably be a year or two. But everything's just with inflation, everything's going up in price.
Yeah.
But any kind of support you can give, 100%. If you want to get the kids water or whatever, they get PB&Js just about every day from the school cafeteria. So thankful for those ladies. They eat those things like hotcakes. But we need a deep freezer up there to store those things. As we're looking, we're trying to me, Coach Jakes, we're game planning, trying to figure things out. Coach Pritchard's talking about making some holes in walls and be able to give them an actual an inventory room. Have them check stuff out. Trying to make we take pride in what we have. The field itself. Thanks to Coach Barry Lyles, that was tenfold better than it's been in a long time. It's going to continue to grow. He does a really good job with that, telling us what we need. You have to mow it every 2 days or so in summer, but I wouldn't change it. I'm a teacher, so I got summers off anyway. So
yeah. Okay, one last question for the internet. How did the JV games show the growth of the young players this season?
We're excited. They did good. We went up to Cotton County and beat Cotton County in the JV game. Cotton County is a 5A football program. They run Flexbone, but they played hard. We've got a kid like Bryson Cardwell. He's going to be a sophomore next year. He's going to start. It'll start clicking at some point for him. He's really committed in the weight room. that sophomore, the kids that are going to be sophomores, they got a good chance to start to make some strides and really contribute this year. We played Union County, played them good. Lost the gap twice, but we were limping out there with like three linemen, like not even three linemen. We had one offensive lineman for one of those games, and that's an area we needed to really promote. Like we need more youth linemen.
Yeah.
Because there's big kids in that school. They should be playing football. If you ain't doing anything, it's fun. We don't run you to death that much. But I was excited to see the way the JV played. They fought hard. Those kids, they went up to Granger, played hard. They still really the JV kids. A lot of them weren't there all summer, so like they showed up. Like they didn't know what was going on, but they were going to give you 100%. But super proud of the way they played. And excited to see how much they grow.
Yeah. Let's talk about the JV team, the linemen.
Mm-hmm.
You got a couple big kids on there. How are they progressing?
We'd like to see some kids show up every day. That's another good thing. Like you're not going to get any better if you don't. You sit at the house and play Fortnite all the time. But we like RJ Quick. He kind of like towards the end of the year he quit showing up a little bit. But we anticipate him coming back out. We got Brad Schneider. He's got to get in the weight room, but he's got the ability to be pretty good. We had Pierce and Trey play a couple JV games just to get some reps. Or I think they played one or two. But we got some size. They just got to get in the weight room and learn the playbook. And we don't run like 5 run plays. It just some things change depending on what the defense does. But just be an expert and listen and practice and listen to your coaches, and you'll continue to get better.
All right, Coach. Not the season we really envisioned, but all in all, the first year. What really realistic goals against such a hard schedule? I think you did pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay. Final words to you.
We've got a lot of work to do as a program. Look forward to seeing how much we can grow. I really wanted that place to grow a lot more and get some more community buy-in and support. Our middle school program does a phenomenal job. We kind of worked with the Tazewell Timberwolves with them. They've done a fantastic job out there. I'd love to see something like that, catapult us into something bigger where we're at. We've got 5 home games next year. Show up, keep supporting these kids. It takes a lot more than just showing up. We take attendance every day in workouts, and there's a difference between being there and actually showing up and doing something. Because you can show up and stay in the corner all day, like in the shadow. But did you get any better? Are you how much better do you want this program to be? How much do you want your kid to be better? Because these coaches are going to push them. We've got a phenomenal staff. Excited to see how much these kids can grow. We're excited to see them become better people, better men. Just better people.
All right, Coach. Thank you for coming in. I always enjoy talking football with you. Thank you, Rex, for giving us this place to showcase our coaches and our athletes. We appreciate you too. If you need any sports equipment or shirts, whatever, he's got it back here, as you can see. Signs, trophies, he does it all. And thank you to everyone who's watched these broadcasts, and we really appreciate that. And we're especially thankful for the questions online today. And until next time, one other thing. Next week, the Elevation KOC Thanksgiving basketball tournament will be at Claiborne High School, and I'm going to try once again to live stream all the games. So share that information around, and maybe I'll get to share it, God willing, all of the games and the trophy presentation and stuff afterwards. Until next time, God bless.